How to import forms from Excel. To get started, click on New Import on the top menu bar. You'll be brought to the Import Forms section. You'll notice at the very top, the current tax year will be selected. In this case, it's 2023. If you'd like to select or import prior tax forms, you just select the tax year and it'll bring you to those tax year forms. You'll see that as we go further back, some forms are not available as they were not introduced yet. Let's go back to 2023, and you see the list of forms above is popular forms will have the NEC, ACA, BNC, miscellaneous, and W-2. For more options, expand the sections below for forms such as the 1099 form series, the 1042S, 1098, 5498, and W-2G forms, the federally tax-exempt state interest forms, 592 California forms, and recipient e-delivery import. Let's go ahead and use the 1099 NEC for this example. Once you select the form type you'd like to import, it'll be labeled above and titled above with the form that you have selected. This is a good way to know that you're in the right form type when you're importing records. The very first field is an optional field and is recommended to use a description of the import that you have in case you have multiple imports that you're doing. Secondly, you can select the filer with this drop-down list below. All the filers that you have entered already will be listed below. But if you do not have a filer and you'd like to import a filer with the recipient information, you can select Read from Import File. In that case, you'll have to have the sample import file which has both filer and form data. Once you select the filer, you can choose the file and submit to import. If you do not have your file or sample Excel spreadsheet, you can go here below and choose Sample Import File to get a sample of the data with all the headers already entered. Clicking the Sample Import File will only have form data because you will already have your filer data if you selected it here. If the filer is not already entered in your filer list, you can select Sample Import Files with both filer and form data. This will have columns on the Excel spreadsheet where you can enter the file information as well as the form data. If you'd like to go further back and select and see what other sample files we have, the very last link is All Sample Import Files. This will take you to all the available sample files that we have, including prior years. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Sample Import File, which is going to download the specific form type and tax year that I have listed above. Okay. Now that we have the Excel spreadsheet that we downloaded, you'll see that all the fields that are on here in the very first row will have every single field available for this tax form. Since I selected the sample import file that does not have the filer information because I've already selected a filer, this will only have the form data that you're going to report for the recipient and the dollar values. You'll see that some of these have red text on here. These red text is typically the required information that you will need to import for the recipient. First name is not highlighted in red because if you're using a company name, you'd only use the company last name field. Now, if you're doing both, as you see here, we have for individual, we have both the first name and last name entered. While the companies will only have the last name company filled out. Going to the right, you'll have all the box data that's on here, and they're generically titled Box 1 amount, Box 2 checkbox, Box 4 amount, Box 6 ID number, and a Box 6 state. The second tab on this sample spreadsheet will have a key. And this key just gives you a little bit of notes on what these fields are. And it also has a link for each one of the fields if you want to have more specifics to that. So if you click on these links, you'll be brought over to our knowledge base site, which is the wiki form or wiki site that's going to have all the field data that you'll have for that specific fields. So in this case, I clicked on the recipient comment fields, and it's going to have the recipient TIN. The amount of characters is the max amount of characters you can enter for that. And the reason why it's 11 is because you can have 2 dashes for SSN. While the recipient account can have 20 characters, first name allows for 40, last name allows for 40, and name line 2 allows for 40, and so on. For the sample data that you have on here, this is just examples of how the form is filled out. You can use this sample sheet to just remove all the boxes that you have here, remove the rows, and then you can enter your own data on here. Once you've done that, you just fill out the fields for each one of those required fields and the box that you need to report. I'm going to go ahead and choose file that I've downloaded. We're going to go to the NEC and then click Submit. The next screen will have map form for NEC. Now, because we downloaded a sample file, all these fields have already been automatically mapped. So clicking Auto Map will just move the fields over to the correct fields that they need to move to. Now, if you have your own headers, if you, for example, use RCP TIN, but you put maybe SSN as the header, this is not going to map if you choose Auto Map. You would just grab this and then move it to the blue highlighted fields of where you just want this to go. In this case, if you had a TIN, you'll move it over to recipient's identification number. That's if you have your own TIN name. Again, because you're using a sample Excel spreadsheet, which is in my example would be much easier, you can just click on Auto Map. From here, you click Submit on the top right. And it'll tell you that 12 records were imported successfully. This dialog screen right here, or this note screen, will give you all the records that you've imported. There's records 1 through 12. And if there's any business rules or anything that looks off with your data, it'll be listed here to show you any kind of errors or warnings in case you're missing a TIN, you're missing a name, or you're missing certain fields. For example, W2, if you're missing, it will list that here for errors and warnings that you want to go ahead and fix before completing the upload. Now, if you're good and ready to go, you can go ahead and click here to add all the forms to the cart, or you can see the upload history here, which will just bring you to the import history, which can also be found on the menu bar, and it'll show you the import. Now, because I didn't fill in the optional name field, this gave it a generic number for the import. The file name of the sample Excel spreadsheet I had is on here, what form type was imported, tax year, the upload date, the status is if it's complete. We'll also have failed or canceled. 100% of that was complete, meaning no records were left behind. The number of records in there, the number that was actually imported, any invalid, which would be errors and warning, or any rejected. And rejected would be if it's missing more components that will automatically reject if you try to file that to the IRS. And these are business rules that are applied to each form.